For more than a century, one name has terrified humanity more than any other creature of the night. Dracula, a vampire count from the mountains of Transylvania, a pale aristocrat who sleeps in coffins, drinks human blood, and hunts beneath the moonlight. But here's the strange part. Dracula was never ancient folklore. He wasn't a creature whispered about for thousands of years, like werewolves, demons, or ghosts. Dracula began as a novel, a fictional character written in 1897 by Irish author Bram Stoker. And yet somehow, this fictional vampire became more real than the myths that inspired him. Today, Dracula is one of the most recognizable monsters on Earth. He shaped modern horror. He transformed how we imagine vampires. And his influence still dominates movies, books, games, and folklore to this very day. But where did Dracula actually come from? Did a real historical figure inspire him? Why do so many people connect him to Vlad the Impaler? And how did one Gothic novel create the definitive image of the vampire? Tonight, we explore the origin, history, legends, symbolism, and terrifying legacy of Dracula. Long before Dracula existed, humanity already feared the dead. Almost every culture in history has stories about creatures that return from the grave. Ancient Mesopotamia spoke of blood-drinking spirits. Greek mythology described undead beings called Dracolikas. In Slavic folklore, vampires were feared as bloated corpses that spread disease and death. But these early vampires were nothing like Dracula. They were not elegant, not charming, not seductive. They were horrifying. Rotting corpses with swollen faces. Creatures blamed for plague outbreaks, famine, and mysterious deaths. In Eastern Europe during the 17th and 18th centuries, vampire panic became so widespread that entire villages dug up graves searching for signs of undeath. People believed that if a corpse looked unusually preserved, or if blood appeared around its mouth, it must be a vampire. Today we understand that decomposition can naturally create these effects. But centuries ago, people saw something much darker. Bodies were staked, heads were removed, corpses were burned. Entire communities genuinely believed the dead were returning at night to feed on the living. And from these terrifying superstitions, the vampire myth slowly evolved. But Dracula would change everything. Because Dracula was not merely a monster. He was intelligent, cultured, aristocratic, and terrifyingly human. The man responsible for Dracula was Bram Stoker. Born in Ireland in 1847, Stoker worked as a theater manager while secretly writing fiction. He became fascinated with Gothic horror, dark castles, forbidden knowledge, ancient evil. For years, Stoker researched European folklore, superstitions, history, and vampire legends. He read accounts of undead creatures from Eastern Europe, myths about blood-drinking demons, and gathered details from travel books describing the mysterious region of Transylvania. At first, his vampire character wasn't even called Dracula. Early drafts used the name Count Wampir. But while researching Romanian history, Stoker discovered a name that changed everything. Dracula. The word came from Dracul, linked to the Order of the Dragon, a medieval military order. It also carried associations with the devil. Stoker loved the sound of it. Dark, ancient, powerful. And so Count Dracula was born. In 1897, Stoker published Dracula. The novel tells the story of Jonathan Harker, a young English solicitor who travels to Transylvania to meet a mysterious nobleman. At first, Count Dracula seems polite and intelligent, but slowly, horrifying truths emerge. Dracula casts no reflection. He crawls across castle walls like a lizard. He sleeps in coffins, and he feeds on human blood. Soon, Dracula travels to England, spreading terror and corruption. A small group, led by Professor Van Helsing, must stop him before his evil spreads. The novel became revolutionary, not because it invented vampires, but because it transformed them. Dracula turned the vampire into something seductive, sophisticated, intelligent, a predator hiding behind aristocratic charm. And from that moment onward, vampires would never be the same. One of the biggest questions surrounding Dracula is this: was he based on a real person? The answer is complicated. Bram Stoker almost certainly drew inspiration from Vlad III of Wallachia, better known today as Vlad the Impaler. Vlad was a real 15th century ruler from what is now Romania, and his reputation was absolutely terrifying. He earned the name the Impaler because of his preferred method of execution. His enemies were impaled on giant wooden stakes, sometimes thousands at a time. Historical accounts describe forests of bodies surrounding his castles. Stories claimed he ate meals among the dying. Others said he dipped bread into the victim's blood. While some of these accounts may be hyperbolic, Vlad certainly was brutal. He ruled during an era of constant warfare against the Ottoman Empire. Cruelty was often used to inspire fear, and Vlad became infamous even among violent medieval rulers. His father belonged to the Order of the Dragon. Because of this, Vlad became known as Dracula, meaning son of Dracul. This is likely where Bram Stoker found the name. The connection between Vlad the Impaler and the vampire Dracula became much stronger later through movies, tourism, and popular culture. Still, the idea is irresistible. A real ruler, known for bloodshed, connected to the name Dracula, living near Transylvania. It sounds almost too perfect to be a coincidence. And over time, history and fiction merged together. Today, many people imagine Dracula and Vlad the Impaler as the same figure, a monstrous, immortal nobleman born from real human cruelty. Dracula's horror is not just about blood, it's about corruption. Unlike mindless monsters, Dracula is intelligent, patient, and manipulative. He seduces his victims psychologically before physically transforming them into vampires. Victims become pale, weak, and emotionally controlled, slowly losing their humanity. To Victorian readers, this reflected several major fears of the time. Fear of disease, fear of outsiders bringing corruption into society, fear of temptation and moral decay. Bram Stoker wrote during an era that valued strict morality and social order, and Dracula threatened both. He appears charming and civilized on the surface, yet hides something deeply predatory beneath. That duality is what makes Dracula so disturbing. He is not a beast lurking in the shadows. He is evil, wearing a human face. Dracula's abilities helped define the modern vampire. In Bram Stoker's novel, Dracula possesses incredible supernatural powers. He has immense strength. He can control wolves. He commands rats and storms. He transforms into mist, bats, and wolves. He can climb walls like an insect. He barely ages, and he possesses hypnotic influence over his victims. But Dracula is not invincible. Like many vampire legends, he has weaknesses. Sunlight weakens him. Holy symbols repel him. Garlic can keep him away. And to destroy him permanently, a stake through the heart is often required. Interestingly, some of these weaknesses became more famous through later movies than through the original novel itself. For example, early vampire folklore did not always portray sunlight as instantly deadly. That idea became much stronger in later cinema. Dracula's rules evolved. Each generation reshaped the vampire myth, but the foundation always led back to Stoker's creation. Dracula escaped the pages of the novel and became immortal through film. In 1922, the silent film Nosferatu introduced one of cinema's earliest vampires. Though names were changed due to copyright issues, the story was unmistakably Dracula-inspired. Then came the legendary 1931 adaptation starring Bela Lugosi. Lugosi's performance transformed Dracula forever. The cape, the accent, the hypnotic stare. Much of what modern audiences imagine when they hear the word Dracula actually comes from Bela Lugosi's portrayal. Over the decades, Dracula evolved again and again. Christopher Lee's Dracula was more violent and predatory. Later versions became romantic, tragic, seductive, or monstrous. Dracula inspired countless vampire stories. Interview with the Vampire, Castlevania, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Lost Boys, Blade. Even modern franchises like Twilight owe part of their existence to Dracula's influence. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the legend of Dracula, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more folklore, myths, and dark legends from around the world.